Hi, hello, good day. I'm Christian Jalbila Badizas, a member of Group 3 in BPE104, Principles Motor Control and Learning of Exercise, Sports, and Dance. This is an instructional video that our group made to share with you about our activity 3 relating the synthesized effective learning situations when teaching human movement and motor skills on exercise, sports, and dance. In this instructional video of our group, we are assigned with sports, and as we are assigned with it, our group decided to choose volleyball and basketball to be our examples. So sit back, relax, have fun, and listen.
Hi ma'am, I am Geneva de Gracia, and today I will have a brief discussion in regards of motor control. Motor control is defined as the process of initiating, directing, and grading purposeful voluntary movement. An example for this is a basketball player snatches the ball from the other team. He automatically took it as soon as his motor, sensory, and sensor process controls the posture and movement to perform the motor tasks. What is motor control in physical education? Motor control is a complex process involving the coordinated contraction of muscles due to the transmissions of impulses sent from the motor cortex to its motor units. So, the perfect example for this is the soccer players use their feet to complete a vertical jump, running and kicking and hitting the ball in a right angle over a perfect place using the emphasis of movement. What is exercise in physical education? Exercise is a physical activity that is planned, structured, and repetitive for the purpose of conditioning the body. So, executing squat is an exercise because your entire body from head to toe is working. It engages almost all your muscle groups, including your neck, back, stomach, and feet. It also developed your power that helps in improving balance and posture. What is sports in physical education? Sports is all forms of physical activity which maintain and improve physical ability and skills. Basketball and volleyball are an example of sports. They require various activities including physical training, physical exertion, physical prowess. The main key in sports are utilized in maintaining and improving physical activity and skills. So it also enables to assist the development of mental and physical health and fitness of the body. What is dance in physical education? Dancing delivers a total body workout. Like other forms of exercise or aerobic exercises, dance strengthens the heart, lungs, and circulatory system. But the varied movements also improve core strength, coordination, balance, flexibility, muscle tone, and spatial awareness. So, jazz dance, hip-hop, contemporary dance are some of the examples of dance. Dancing often used synchronization pattern and change of position over time. Dancer faced complex, and motor control assists to master new skills and motor behavior during the entire performance.
Sawadee Annyeong, and Mabuhay. This is Crystal J. Yartuduhay Lungsod from first year BPN.
So moving on, let's proceed to the next part, which is motor learning. So number 1, what is motor learning? That is for A. B, what is motor learning in physical education? Example, most basketball skills require a combination of gross and fine motor skills to be performed at a high level. In dribbling, gross motor skills are evident in running, motion, as well as the arm action. But fine motor skills such as the fingertip action in dribbling are necessary to perform the action. So the basic or unit in motor learning is having an action or movement, performing an action. So next is what are the 3 phases or stages of motor learning? So there are 3 phases or stages in motor learning. First in line is cognitive. Example, the cognitive stage is the period during which the goals of the task and the appropriate movement sequence to achieve these goals are determined. So a player is already aware. At this stage, the learner is novice or new to the task or inexperienced. Is new to the skill and task at hand and makes the conscious effort to develop an understanding of what to do. However, the player is starting to understand and inculcate to his or her head what he or she needs to do. Shooting is the most important skill in basketball. The fundamental skill of passing, dribbling, and defense, as well as rebounding, may enable you to get high percentage shot, but you must still be able to make the shot. At this stage, a basketball player must need to learn everything about the task in front of them, from proper stance to how to hold the ball and make a score. So next is the second stage or phase is associative. Example, in the second stage, this stage is characterized by more specific, recurring errors and efficiency. So fixing the lacking. Athletes piece together to gather the skills they have learned in the attempt to refine a broader movement pattern. Excuse me. Such as dribbling, passing the ball, and most especially shooting in order to gain points. They have the knowledge by this time and started to master the basic movements and generate new strategies for them to be a productive basketball player. Now they repetitively refine the skill. So by this time, they're already aware of everything, and a player is starting to master his or her craft in the field of sports, any sports actually. But in the field of basketball, they are already grown in terms of dribbling, shooting, passing the ball, is something, everything. And lastly, for this stages of motor learning is autonomous. So the example of autonomous, in the third stage, the stage is characterized by the player's high level of skill and efficiency. So at this point, the players already know. I just repeat this word, bro. The basketball player has high power and speed without sacrificing accuracy. By this time, they are already a basketball player. The autonomous stage of the skill acquisition is when the player is no longer thinks at all about the skill. In this stage, the movement comes naturally, and the player can focus on the other aspect of the competition, such as basketball and also how to be a defensive player. So by this time, it's not about the skill and the mastery, but the movement of the player already comes naturally without forcing themselves to do so. So number 3, I think this is the last one for my part. How do we improve performance? So practice. Practice is the basic and major requirement in improving motor learning of an individual. That is why it requires a repetitive process, such as dribbling, passing, and shooting, in order to reach that expected mastery in the field of basketball. B. Instruction and focus. Prioritize in improving your weakness in basketball. For example, shooting the ball, especially when you're having a hard time in coping up in that area. C. Feedback. So there are 2 types of feedback. One is internal, and the second one is external. So let's go first on internal. So this is the time you evaluate yourself, the development you did throughout the program. So number 1, internal. Do you have an improvement in terms of your mental and psychological stability, such as having new strategies and understanding the complex rules in basketball? Next is external. External feedback. Is there any improvement you've noticed in your physical appearance? Physical appearance, does your body have adapted the hurdles in training? Can you already perform the movement and gestures properly that is demanded by the field of your chosen sport, or the field of basketball, for example? So next is modeling. Setting a goal is an important factor in improving performance in all aspects, so that you can have another basis in evaluating yourself. So a player should always remind himself for his goal. And next, and I guess lastly, manual guidance. Just in case unwanted accident occurs and the player just got injured within the program, it would be better to stop him from continuing what he had started. And take time to heal first and contemplate before coming back. They shouldn't force themselves to continue for a reason that it might cause a severe and serious problem. And as much as possible, an injured player must consider to have consultation from professionals, a doctor, for example. And I guess that's it. Thank you.
So hi everyone, I am Kate Vicalina, and I'm going to give you an instructional video about the basic concepts of motor learning and performance. So first, we have here the motor learning is an internal process. So like for example, when playing volleyball, the volleyball player's movement cannot be predicted or even determined immediately. Like for example, the way the player hit the ball, you cannot see immediately if he or she will hit it hardly or softly to win against the other team. Second, we have here motor learning is a set of processes. So for example, the volleyball player will not be good enough if he or she didn't undergo with the process of training and exercise, practicing like how to hit the ball, how they move, how they should be moved, and how they should move their knee in order to receive a ball. Third is motor learning is to form motor habits. So, like for example, volleyball player again, they run faster than the non-athletic people because they undergo a process of training. That is why they run faster, and that's became their habits. And when they see a ball, they just suddenly get it and hit it up. Like for example, when they see a volleyball ball, they will get it and play with it, and that became their habits. So fourth is motor learning is relatively permanent. So like Eliza Valdez, she's a volleyball player, and even she would stop playing volleyball and go to work, her ability to play won't be erased, and she will stay pro at it because it was she embodied the how to play the volleyball. That is why it is permanent. It became relatively permanent to herself. Lastly, motor learning is not a value that can be negative. So in volleyball, like players in the UAAP, you can see that they are very good at it. They play very well. However, they did not stop learning. They still do some practices, some trainings, and improve their skills. They even, through trainings, they even opened a new skill. They found a new skill. So next, we have here the motor behavior, relationship with the academic discipline like kinesiology, and several other related to motor learning. So first is motor behavior. So there are certain postures in volleyball, like the postures of catching the ball, and it really did good on their part, on their performance when they bend their knees and then bend their knees to catch the ball. They would hit it nicely because of that postures, and that is motor behavior. Second is the motor control. So, for example, volleyball player internalize which open areas they will make the ball land. In order to win a points, that's the motor control. So they would see an open area to to make the ball land on it, so they can win a point. So the third is motor development. So because of the series of training of the volleyball players, they develop their skills. They enhance their skills, and that's the motor developments because of the trainings, the practices, the exercises. Their develops over time. Lastly, we have here the motor performance. So in a competition, example, in a competition, you will see if the player really had the progress to be more skillful on his or her sport, like the volleyball. You will see if the trainings had really affect his or her performance on playing volleyball. So that is the motor performance. So we have three components of motor areas of human movement and contribute to motor performance. So first is the neuromuscular control mechanism of responding to external stimuli. So for example, this is where like the volleyball players condition their body in order to do good in their game, like stretching, or unconsciously they will stop the trainings before the actual competition. So that is the neuromuscular control mechanism. Second component is the neuromuscular mechanism of decision making in advance for taking action. So this is where volleyball player thinks about good strategies to win against the other team. So like thinking on hitting the ball softly if the other team in the competition, the other team are all expecting for your team to hit it hard, then you had the strategies to hit it softly in order to win against the other team. So third is the unconscious control mechanism for controlling reflex movements. So for example, the reflexive knee movement when playing volleyball, it is the unconsciousness. It seems like the body is so used to it, like the sudden land diving in order to catch the ball and play with it. So that is why we have the unconscious control mechanism for controlling reflex movements like the sudden bend of knee, catching the ball, and more. So we also had a three components contribute to motor performance factor contribute to motor performance. So first is the learner's characteristic. So when you start training at the age of 10, it is expected to see that you improve a lot when you get older. When I mean is when you turn 14 or 15, it is expected that you have made a lot or a big progress. And it is also due to your experience, and it enhance your ability to play well. The second is instructor's competence. So this is where the coaches has the competence to do his job. To do his job well because of his athletic experience and knowledge about sports. So it is expected that if you are a coach or instructors, you have the experience and the knowledge about the certain field you are teaching or you are coaching. So you should have the competence, the skills, and the attitude. So the last component is learning environment and conditions. So for example, when you are in training, it is important to do it in an environment where there are no distraction, that where there is a comfortable ambience for you, and of course has the complete set of training tools in order to do it successfully. So when you are training a certain sport like volleyball, you needed a volleyball area, and you need a certain tool in order to practice. So that is the learning environment and conditions.
Good day! For this part of the video, I will be the one who will be discussing to you, and I am Christian Gelbila Badizas. My discussion is all about the theories of motor control. The theories are 1. Reflex theory. The author is Sharrington of 1906. Clinical implications. In this theory, it used sensory input to control motor output, stimulate good reflexes, inhibit undesirable or primitive reflexes, rely heavily on feedback. Example for this theory is that when a server of particular volleyball team serves the ball to opponent's side, the server will decide where to give the serve, in which the player strive to serve the ball to the opponent's low percentage player interception, and by doing so, the team will gain score. Second motor control theory is that dynamical system theory. Authors are Bernstein in 1967, Turvey of 1977, Kelso and Thieler of 1984, Thelen of 1987. Clinical implications are: movement is an emergent property from the interaction of multiple elements. Second, understand the physical and dynamic properties of the body. Example, velocity important for dynamics of movement. May be good to encourage faster movement in patients to produce momentum and therefore help weak patients move with greater ease. Example for this is a middle hitter of a volleyball team which moves from both left and right directions of the net, where the middle hitter is the player who made excellent quick plays. It will allow him or her to gain both the offense and defense that is needed in the court. Third motor control theory is the hierarchical theories. The author for this one is Adams of 1971. Clinical implications are: identify and prevent primitive reflexes, reduce hyperactive stretch, normalizes tone, facilitate normal movement patterns, developmental sequence, and recapitulation. Example for this is practice from lightweight to heavy trainings. Volleyball players has separate trainings which is identified as to lightweight when a beginner until smoothly acquired to oneself heavy trainings for better output in plays and in our game. Fourth one is the motor program theory. Author Schmid of 1976. Clinical implications are abnormal movement, help patients relearn the correct rules for action, retrain movements important to functional tasks, and do not just re-educate muscles in isolation. Example for this one is the rehabilitation program of an injured player to a specific injured part during the play or during trainings. Example, in a volleyball game. This program will allow the player to correct pattern in doing proper things during trainings and most important, in during games. Fifth theory, ecological theories. Authors are Gibson and Peake of 2000. Clinical implications help patients explore multiple ways in achieving functional tasks. Example, trainings of the coach with the players. We all know that coach serves as the parent of the players during trainings. Their advice, techniques, methods, proper place in the band will surely be the key factors for players to achieve being functional and efficient in games. 6. Systems Model. Author, Shamway Cook of 2007. Clinical implications. Identifiable, functional tasks. Practice under a variety of conditions and modify environmental context. Example, the players are set with their respective roles inside a court. Spiker are identified inside a court mostly as the one who will contribute for a score. The setter or playmaker is the brain of the teams as to they are the one who will set up the ball for the spikers. In addition, the libero is the one who will receive and dig the ball for it to be passed on to the setter and for the rally to continue. In a team, of course, the huge task is given to the captain ball as to being vocal to teammates and the one who will help the team to aim high and to fight strong during games. Now, after discussing the theories of motor control, we will be proceeding to the theories of motor learning. First theory is the Adams closed loop theory. Of course, the author is Adams of 1971. Clinical implications are perform same exact movement repeatedly to one accurate endpoint. Increase practice, errors produced during learning. In a volleyball game, the rally will start with the player who will serve the ball towards the other side of the net. If the serve is already coming, the receiver of the other team will execute to receive the ball. After the ball is received properly by the receiver of the team, the ball will go to the setter's hands, which he or she will set up the ball to the spiker. Then, the spiker will aim to end the rally by killing the ball to opponent's side. Yet, if the spiker or any player of the other team fails to gain a score, the rally will continue by receiving or digging, setting up, and then spiking the ball, and it will continue until one team prevails to gain a score. The second theory of motor learning is the Schmid's schema theory. Author Schmid in 1975. Clinical implications are optimal learning, positive benefits for error production. Schema has rules for all stored elements, not just correct elements. Example, there are times which a valuable player can commit an intentional error or errors. This is when the time the coach of the team will call for a timeout and will make some adjustments by giving some pointers on how not to or even minimize the team's unattended errors. By this, it will allow the players to rethink and re-evaluate their oneself performance inside the court. Third theory of motor learning is the ecological theory of Newell, 1991. Clinical implication, patients learns to distinguish relevant perceptual cues important to action. Example, in volleyball, there are techniques, methods, terms, and hand signals that only volleyball players and coaches knows, and these are used during trainings and also in actual games. These things are important for players to execute well, efficient, and great plays while on the position of the coach, it will gain connection to his or her players to gain trust and confidence that they may bring to the journey, battling inside and even outside the court.
So hi everyone, my name is Yana Polinario and I am going to talk about the factors affecting motor learning. So there are 7 factors affecting motor learning. So the first factor is verbal instructions. Verbal instructions are medium to long goal-directed, task-oriented phrases and verbally administered to an individual in order to enhance athletic performance and or motor skill learning. One example, basketball athletes are being oriented from the beginning of training up until the moments of their game. Coaches use verbal instructions to instruct the players on how would the players execute the play. So the second factor is practice. This is the activity of doing something again and again in order to become better at it. One example, coaches provide some drills that the players must perform in every training in order to enhance their skills. These includes warm-up, basketball skill drills, defense and rebounding drills, team offense drills, reviewing special situations, and scrimmage. The third factor is active participation and motivation. This is the consistent and simultaneous engagement and interaction to learn. Players that are consistent on practicing and are active in engaging in any competition. Players' enjoyment of playing basketball, the challenge of competition, the reaching new personal levels, skill improvement, exploration of potential, and etc. The fourth factor will be possibility of errors. This is something you have done which is considered to be incorrect or wrong, or which should not have been done. For example, in basketball, traveling or moving without dribbling. Anytime you have the ball and want to move around the court, you must dribble. If you don't, the referee will blow the whistle and give the ball to other team. The fifth factor will be postural control. This is the act of maintaining, achieving, or restoring a state of balance during any posture or activity. Basketball is a high-demand sport activity with a high prevalence of lower limb injuries, namely knee and ankle sprains. It is a sport which involves mainly jumping and landing. This equilibrium can be found in every specific movement of basketball, such as the twisting movement of the feet, jump shots as well as offensive and defensive rebounds. Besides which, basketball requires the players to habitually address physical contact and various situations involving balance instability. So the sixth factor will be memory. Memory refers to the processes that are used to acquire, store, retain, and later retrieve information. Mastering a physical activity like shooting free throws occurs when the automated subconscious processes of the brain take over. When the shooter attempts to slow down, to focus and concentrate, or control these automated processes, the shooter actually shut down their autopilot and engage their manual conscious part of the brain, which is poorly equipped to make the shot while under pressure. The last factor will be feedback. Feedback is the information the performer receives about a skill or performance. It provides direction, goals, and help the athletes to adjust their performance and skill execution as they progress through the stages of skill acquisition. Coaches can provide additional information to give athletes more detail about their performances. This helps them narrow the gap between what they perceived about what they did, what actually happened, and how they can improve. For example, basketball players can hear verbal feedback from a coach, comments from teammates, the response of the spectators, and referee's decision. To sum up my discussion, so the factors affecting motor learning are verbal instructions, practice, active participation and motivation, possibility of errors, postural control, memory, and lastly, feedback. So that's all, and thank you for listening.
Principles of learning motor skills. 1. Interest. Example, learning from mistakes and doing extra effort to perform the sport well. 2. Practice. Example, a libero mastering to proper receive, dig the ball, and doing the floor works inside the court. 3. Distributed practice. Example, there is time to practice specific routine as the spiking, blocking, receiving, and digging. 4. Skill specificity. Example, libero is effective to reception and saves, while the spiker is effective to spike and to gain a point. Fifth, whole part learning. Example, coach and coaching staff's ability to establish and distinguish certain roles to each player in trainings and during games. Sixth, transfer. Players' acceptance and adjustments to every coach decision if a realignment is needed for the team. 7. Improvement. Example is the exposure of the player inside the court. 8. Feedback. Coaching staff. Example is the coaching staff to assist adjustments, adaptation, and learning to players. 9. Variable practice. Example, popularity due to attitude and great plays of a player inside and outside the court.
So hi, this is Pauline Hariol, and I am going to talk about identifying issues in motor performance. So for example, in doing sports, we should identify the minor or major injuries of the player that is observed by the coach, the coaching staff, or the co-players, which will affect the player's way of playing in the game. So for example, in playing volleyball, poor landing technique is the most common reason for knee injuries in volleyball players. Athletes should land with their knees over their toes and their hips back. Landing with an increased knee bend or with knees out of line with the toes places more strain on the knees, which will not only affect the player but also his performance in playing, not only in sports but also in dancing. So when a dancer has discomfort or injuries, it will also affect his or her performance in dancing. So that would be awkward to see. So it is effective and important to identify the issues in motor performances.
Moving on, let's proceed to number 2, which is developing treatment strategies to help patients remediate performance problems. So our example for this is if ever the injured player is experiencing inflammation, they can probably perform the PRICE principle, which stands for protection, rest, ice, compression, and elevation. The main goal of this treatment is to at least reduce the pain and the swelling they're experiencing. So this scenario is very common to those people in the field of sports, most especially those players in basketball and volleyball, which they're very more vulnerable in having sprains and ankle injuries. However, this is just a basic treatment, or let's just say a first aid, because later on, after they perform this, they should consider consulting professionals or doctors so that they could have the treatment they should have.
For a volleyball player, practice under a variety of conditions is vital. Their body systems overlap to activity synergies for the exposition of movements that are regulated around the applicable goals. Stimulation good reflexes also is the basis of movement. Therefore, if reflexes are combined into the particular player's action, they would create an appraisal behavior and satisfying assessment in different conditions.
So the fourth clinical significance of motor control and motor learning is the evaluating the effectiveness of intervention strategies employed. So it can be performance-based assessment, basically like the basketball players. The coach will conduct an assessment before the intervention to see on which side of the player he should improve, and of course, after that, the coach will provide a series of trainings and exercise. That's the intervention. To see if there's any improvement to the players, he will again conduct an assessment to evaluate the performance of the players. So to sum up everything, the coach assessed the performance of the player before the intervention and after the intervention. In conclusion, we conclude that it is very important to learn an effective learning situation when teaching human movement, especially that learning an effective learning situation creates a connection or a bond between the students and the instructors. So, in an effective learning situation, demonstrating or teaching human movement can be very effective. First, because it strengthens learning since the students or the learners are very comfortable with their surroundings, then it strengthens how they learned. Second, or lastly, it improves their memory since it was demonstrated to them the human movement face to face, their memories improves.
Motor skills and motor control begin developing after birth and will progress as children grow. Therefore, motor control is needed because it helps children explore the world around them, which can help with many other areas of development. So, in conclusion, it is vital for a reason that it makes the movement that we do from lifting heavy items to typing on a keyboard. And in the field of sports, it is the basic requirement so that an individual can perform well. And that is why it is vital and significant, and the importance of motor skills in motor learning.
Thank you for watching our instructional video. God bless and keep safe always. See you in our next discussion. Bye!